Storm Harvest was the third book written by Mike Tucker and Robert Perry. It was released in June of 1999. Coming off of Matrix, I didn't think this book could possibly live up to the last one. Storm Harvest begins with the Doctor and Ace materializing fresh off of Matrix on a colony planet named Coralie. They're still recovering from their previous adventure. Ace separates from the Doctor while the Doctor researches the colony. He learns that the native species of the planet has gone long extinct, and leaving nothing but legends of a species called the Krill. The Doctor decides to investigate a recently wrecked seafaring vessel. Meanwhile, someone in the colony is watching this and reports it to an alien spaceship controlled by the Sithosi. The Sithosi run a ship maintained by their human slaves. In contact with them is a talking dolphin. The human slaves are preparing to rebel against their Sithosi masters. Ace gets into a submarine which is then attacked by the Krill, the species that was thought to have gone extinct years ago. Ace survives and gets back to the surface. The Doctor finds the dead body of a Krill and begins dissecting it when it gets up and attacks him. Near this is a weapon which can destroy the Krill, but Garrett, one of the colony managers, takes it from him. As for the Krill, the Doctor rips out its internal tissue, finally killing it. The Doctor discovers that the monster's body consists of an undifferentiated tissue, which makes it nearly impossible to kill. Even close to death, it secretes larval tissue in an attempt to reconstruct a pupa around itself and heal. The Doctor accesses the data pad that was on the body, and he learns of the Krill eggs scattered throughout the planet. If they awaken, they will destroy everything in their path. The Krill were created as a biological weapon by the former species of the planet to unleash onto any other world and conquer it. They are the biological equivalent of a nuclear bomb and destroy all in their wake. A submarine is attacked by a few already awakened Krill and explodes. This causes the Krill to awake from the shockwave of the blast. Garrett is now revealed to be the alien who contacted the alien spaceship. A fleet of Sithosi shuttles arrives from the warship in the asteroid belt. The Doctor realizes that they are without good intention. The Sithosi have been waiting for the Krill eggs to cultivate and pick them up from Coralie and use them as a weapon once harvested. After the Krill have destroyed Coralie, they would use the weapon to wipe the Krill out, which Garrett has stolen. Unsure of his identity, he betrayed the Sithosi. Garrett sabotages the power relay unit of the colony in order to activate all the remaining Krill eggs. The Doctor transports them onto the Sithosi ship that he is on in a holding tank. The dolphin who is on the ship, meeting with the Sithosi, destroys the Krill-killing weapon, but a Krill kills him in turn. A hole is ruptured in the side of the ship. The Doctor, now in space with nothing but the Krill eggs, uses a last-chance attempt to use the Krill's secretions to create a barrier around himself. The ship explodes and the Doctor lands on Coralie inside a Krill egg. Meanwhile, in space, the Krill eggs have now been scattered everywhere and are waiting for someone to reawaken them. This book is a fairly typical Doctor Who story, but with more to it. The setting is a space colony, but it's a planet made entirely of water. There's multiple conflating factions that Tucker and Perry introduce, more than the typical Doctor Who story. There's the Doctor and Ace, the colony workers, the Sithosi, their human slaves, the Krill, and then the Dreekins, another religious race on Coralie. Some of the characters in the factions are more forgettable than others. Garrett was memorable, but the other humans in the colony were not. For example, there's the talking dolphins that seem more like an expansion of the setting than of characters. I'm not saying that this book has had awesome world building, but as with most of the Tucker and Perry books, it seems that there's at least an attempt for what you can do in a Doctor Who novel. The most memorable new addition from this novel was without a doubt the Krill. It's an interesting concept for a species to be entirely a weapon. In the novel, it's made abundantly clear that the Krill are tough and nearly unkillable, such as the dissection scenes where the Doctor describes them as layer upon layer of muscle tissue with little to no organs. Poles rip through them and they keep coming and destroying the colony. The image on the cover of Storm Harvest was actually created by Mike Tucker and Robert Perry as an actual prop for a hypothetical episode, due to the fact that Tucker had worked on special effects and went to work on model effects in New Who. I think the Krill are the definite Tucker and Perry monster. They would later return in the audio novel Dust Breeding. This novel almost feels like a book where the Doctor is truly the main character. Not that this is a particularly good or bad thing, but it's a story where we really follow the Doctor and mostly him alone and what he's doing. It was a trait of the VNAs to focus on side characters, which is actually a great thing, because oftentimes the typical Doctor and companion formula can get tiring for a lot of people. But the Doctor in the story is interesting to watch, going from planet to spaceship. Alternatively though, Ace doesn't have a huge part in this story. She disappears for most of it and spends most of her time in situations that mostly seem to exist to keep her out of the plot, which leads me to my greatest gripe of this book, the separation of the Doctor and Ace yet again. I get that the characters need to be apart sometimes, but it's becoming a deep-rooted habit in the Tucker books to have the Doctor and Ace away from each other, where I would prefer to see them more together and interacting. Most of the minutes in this book that could be considered slow are tied to most of the other characters. The pacing of this novel is slowest in the beginning. Therefore, I would give this book roughly a 6 to 7 out of 10.